All right, so we get to the best of, or the top 20 of September, the probably best at the end of the summer, sort of the first peak of popular music, sort of kicking up for the holiday season, and naturally we get some of the best metal of the year in general. Now, I would say that October doesn't really compare to this month coming up. This is probably one of the best months of the year in terms of new and exciting releases, and maybe that will be a letdown for some people because it hasn't been an incredible year. But you're certainly going to have plenty enough to choose from, when you're figuring what you liked most this year, or, trying to figure out what you missed that was valuable is going to be difficult. I think it's pretty obvious that most of the internet, at least, was pretty excited about Two Modes The Enduring Spirit. It's their fourth album. It's my album of the month. I spent quite a lot of time with this record. I've been a fan of this group from their early stages, and I've had a chance to, interview them here and there. So this was very unexpected, I would say, in terms of the shift in style, but it makes a lot of sense because anytime that I read an interview or talked to them, you could tell that these were influences that were bound to show up because of their tastes, and they weren't going to keep making the same record over and over. So this is. I'm just a huge fan of classic progressive death metal, and there's a lot of that in here. This isn't a fully modern, trying to be, the popular side of things. It just kind of did its own thing, and I thought that was uh, pretty exciting looking back on it. But really, just I sat down, I enjoyed this album for a couple of months, and I was excited to finally talk about it. So it just kind of dropped suddenly, and we still have to wait a couple of weeks for some of the copies, but you know. Probably one of the more exciting releases of the year. I'm hesitant to call the album of the year in September for obvious reasons, and there's plenty more coming out. There are a lot of great records that came out throughout the year, and we'll have plenty of time to recap all of that, more so in December as per usual. So, the thing to be excited about, from my point of view, this September was Two Mold's debut, but again, plenty more to talk about here too. I would say probably up there with one of the better technical death metal records of the year, if not the best so far, in terms of being entirely its own thing, being some of the best songcraft, and I would say compositional technicality, or not technicality so much as there's a complexity to this record that has a voice to it. And a lot of things that are complex for the sake of it often have no voice, or they present a random scattering of ideas to throw off the listener with a bit of style and not less substance. Dredge to the Thicket has quite a lot of substance, and I think Fabricant has this incredible talent for writing these very detailed pieces that have substance and statement. So that is so far above the norm that it's too bad that this record might take second fiddle, on my list and maybe some others. But this is probably one of the records that will probably last the longest in people's collections because it is so it works so well with the anything with a shelf life that is repeatable like this is it belongs on in your collection. So definitely check that out if you like technical death metal, whether you're into the old school style or the new. There's something here for a little bit of something for everyone that is its own sort of timeless crazy thing that is just impressive on all counts. So the third full-length album from Demoniac. This is a Chilean blackened thrash metal band with a little bit of a progressive thrash metal flair. It definitely pulls from the same font that the last record did. I really loved that last record, and I think this one goes a little heavier on the straightforward pieces. It tries to touch upon the black metal side of the band more so to emphasize it, and we get the progressive death thrash feeling moments all over the place. So it's a very strong, aggressive, mean record. The lyrics are very they have their own point of view there that is fairly unique, and I, I like this very much appeals to me and my love of extreme thrash and bestial thrash and a lot of those things that match up. A lot of the same reasons that the next record or the I'm sorry, the Blood Oath record appealed to me, but from a different point of view entirely. So. Uh, a huge recommendation for me. I could see this being a difficult catch for some people that are interested in pure thrash metal, but if you're interested in the extreme side, it's a pretty great band, and they've been really impressive across the board with their discography thus far. So the admixture of the bestial and the intelligent is kind of what I'm tending to like the most these days, and I think Blood Oath is a band that sort of touches upon the old school style in a very strong way in terms of progressive or technical death metal of the early 90s, but also has a bestial classic death metal and I would say death thrash metal side to it as well. So if you're a fan of early Sadus and that intensity, but you like the performative sort of bass guitar of when Steve DiGiorgio was in that band, this group has a little bit of that early atheist side of it too. So really great to see this band finally come out with a full length and to see that it sort of changed hands in a lot of ways to the point where this is a different sound than was expected, but it was just as good as expected. So I was really excited about this record. I think if you're a fan of this classic style of death metal that is smart but still insane, this is a great record to own, and I think it's worth paying more attention to. So unfortunately, the end of the month cycle sort of had to finish out before I finished my review of Akamoth, the third full-length album from Wells Valley, which is a Portuguese, I guess, avant-garde death metal band, a post-black metal band, not really death metal, I guess, anymore. Pretty unique black metal band overall. Not quite necessarily black metal, not quite doom metal, definitely dissonant avant-garde metal. Anyway, this is an album of feeling. It's a gloomy, destructive, um, I guess a sound you won't really find outside of newer Deathspell Omega and I guess some other records in that vein. But this is their own unique take on it, and of course, my thoughts are still forming in my mind as I still write the review. So. That doesn't mean I haven't spent time with the record or that I haven't considered it heavily. It's more that putting this kind of record into words, you kind of have to choose your words a little bit carefully so you don't get carried away. But anyway, it is one of the better records that came out this last month. It really has had a lot of it's stuck in my head quite a bit over the last 2 weeks, and I think more so than a lot of the other choices on this list did in a profound way, where it was something new to consider about this type of black metal. So, something worth considering, and something that I'll continue to be investigating over the next month, even. So, worth a grab. So Hexfestal have reached the 6th album mark, and they've put out a different record every time that they've released one. It's sort of a chameleonic form that they've described as forest folk and progressive psychedelic folk metal, everything under the sun. I think that there's a current of folk rock in everything they do. This one covers a lot of the general oeuvre and the body of work from Matt McNerney in terms of a little bit of progressive and atmospheric black metal. A lot of the folk rock and sort of gothic feeling rock and post-punk affect. There's a lot that went into this record, and it comes together in this brilliant way. I think it's one of their best records, if not their best record yet. I still have some strong feelings about their first record and some of the other ones along the way. I really like their evolution early on. But I do think this is one of their best records to date, and one that has a very unique atmosphere that is vivid, and just great songwriting backs up all of those ideas. There's more substance there than just style and that idea. There's songs that are memorable and have a lot of feeling attached to them. So easy recommendation here, and certainly belongs in the top 10 of the month.
There's a fire in the soul, a heart in the blood, wilderness beyond belief.
It is certainly one of the things that I love most about late 80s thrash is there was a brain, but there was still the ferality and the attack of thrash metal was still alive in guitarists. And I think that a band like Terminalist, a sort of Danish-American thrash metal band, they capture the feeling of classic thrash as well as some black metal and I guess progressive metal influences as well into their sound, but they keep it all about the riff and the attack and the cerebral ideas that reinforce all of their work. So it's such an impressive band the more time I spend with them and their works. I love the continuity between their works, and I think that this record is probably their best one yet. I mean, it's hard to say that both of their records are pretty great, but this one really stuck with me in terms of what it had to say, the shift in tone overall, and how aggression and destruction really fuel the type of songs that they're writing here, it's a little bit more tragic and defeated and angry. And I really liked that about this record, that they took a turn for the more ferocious on this record, and I loved it. It's not too often that I hear something new in death metal, and I spent a lot of the review of Eye of Water, this second full length from San Diego, California area death doom / shoegaze band, Tideless, reasoning through where this could have come from and why it is so unique, and where is there precedence that shoegaze and death doom would meet. You could run it back as far as Thurgothan. You could go look closer at Disembowelment and where that went itself, and you could find a lot of ambiance and things. We could look to modern bands like Lycus and other things, but the point is we get something unique out of Tideless here, and they've done a lot better at emphasizing what is unique about their sound here on this second full length. It's great to have more of their work, but this is an abundance of their work that kind of proves itself through listens that it is very different, and it is rooted in that sort of 90s alternative rock shoegaze feeling in the guitar work, where they've exaggerated it to fit in with death metal, and it works. I really like this record, and I hope a lot more people give it a chance. And it's very long, it's very involved, and the pieces are rewarding in that sense. So I hope that a lot of people get out there and check this band out and support them. So speaking of long form songs taking a different tone, Take's Et Hab Ab Abstand, it sort of showed up with these really long pieces, and four of them for this record. And this has always been an important band for me since a couple of their early records really got me into the minutiae of black metal at a time where black metal had sort of become this cheap, strange thing. So there's some nostalgia here just to be back with this sound and this band because it's been a while, but also these are long form pieces that say a lot with in a very simple way. So the rock influenced structures of the band are still there, but they're more progressive rock sized pieces that say a lot more with their motions and movement. So this is still a guitar band, a great guitarist, and yeah, this is a record that stuck with me, and I didn't see a lot of other people talking about it. But for me, this is an important record for the month, and one that kind of helps to reinforce this legacy of this band and his sound, and takes it somewhere a little bit new that I wasn't really expecting. So Crepuscule Nura is the type of record that will take time to absorb. Naturally, this is a follow-up to one of their more accessible records, and one that I think they wanted to tweak the formula a little bit here to rein it back towards the singular or the natural appeal of melodic black metal. Uwara are the type of band where they started out in a very traditional place, and they added their own spin on it quickly, and now, just 4 albums in, they have this really richly realized personality of their own that has a lot of really classic elements in it. So I really love what this band does, but I think that it's a thing that black metal fans have a tough time wrapping their head around, because the concern with tradition and certain other styles don't always gel with the idealization of music, and whatever that means. I enjoyed this record. This is a great record that it stuck with me because there is such rich detail that has such interesting movement throughout, that it was just good listening. And I think that counts for something in 2023, where so many bands are so obsessed with pointless things, that this is a group that gave themselves a bit of a restart and focused on something what mattered to them. So Mass Grape Horizon is the debut full-length album from death doom metal band Excarnated Entity. From what I understand, they have relocated from Seattle to Portland in general, and this hasn't really changed their sound so much as the lineup changes have. And what I mean is that different guitarists, different roles have been changed, and they've made a big step beyond their debut, and it's been a great one because there's a lot more melody in their classic death doom metal sound. There's a little bit more of the British melodic touches on some of the songs, a little bit of Paradise Lost on one. There's just not so much making it cute or sweet, but making a barreling hard-ass death metal record with interesting riffs and movement throughout. It's got a great production sound. I love their new logo. I think every change that they've made to this band over just a couple years has added up to something that it reinforces their signature and their style, but also improves upon it to where this is the kind of band where it's worth giving them the time of these extended listens and these longer songs, because they always have somewhere to go with it. So just a great record, and something that any death doom metal fan will connect with easily. I think that the homebrewed and sometimes described as lo-fi style of mid-paced death metal from Finnish death metal band Decy is often either maligned or put down as something that is, you know, simple or not so much simple, but just again home brewed and homemade. And I think that shows that there aren't a lot of really there aren't a lot of people into death doom metal that are really do support the underground and underground death metal and understand where death metal came from, who understand this is very honest and actually fairly original band that have developed their own style over the course of 8 full lengths, this being the 8th one. They only reinforce the incredible and unique style with this record, and of course I couldn't get enough of it. I've been a fan of this band from the get-go. I was a Slugathor fan from back in the day, and I followed this group from their inception, and I think that it's that doesn't give me much of a bias, because I think I've been really critical of each record from that point, but they really hit a sweet spot past 2017 in terms of working a little bit on the render, touching upon the unique rhythms that were their own, taking that sort of late 90s bolt thrower sound and fusing it with the Finnish death metal lexicon deeper, but then finding their own unique style of echoing and atmospheric leads that sort of clash in interesting polyphonic ways. There's a lot to this band to enjoy. So if you're focused on fidelity or maybe the ugly album art here that's kind of squished, you're kind of missing the point that just how cool this is. Void is the latest full-length album from Kenmode, and it comes as part of a diptych or a double album that started with Null last year. Now, I liked Null, but nowhere near as much as this one. I think that it felt like it had most of the catchier singles, a lot of the quicker, angrier songs. It had a couple of strange industrial, sort of noise rock inflected things, and it wasn't until this record came out that I understood the full body of their work and how this is maybe the more substantial half of the duo in terms of just longer, more involved and expressive songs that are rooted in their own brand of, I guess, Avent Guard noise rock, which has some sludge metal undertones to it. So very impressed with this record. I didn't review it and talk about it because I'm working on a noise rock list that is becoming very extensive over time. But look forward to that. I think that this is easily one of the best records of the month. So 7 albums into their career, so the Slomatics have been through a lot of changes. This Northern Ireland-based trio they switched singers and drummers at one point. It changed their sound drastically, and they've taken on a lot of experimental ideas since then. And the drummer's voice has continually increased in its timbre, and that meant that this band's style moved away from the I guess the heady psychedelic doom range towards something that is related to I guess catchier sludge rock and psychedelic doom. And there's a lot of things that went into this record that made it strangely catchy, accessible, and just one of their better works overall. It's gone up and down on the list as I was making it, just because it's a great record to return to, but I maybe I have my other favorites in the discography now, so I don't want to oversell it, but it is an evocative work that is, I found it very memorable. Zephyrian Hymns is the second full-length album from Milan Salas, and this is a Greek black metal band that has heavy influences from classic heavy metal, epic heavy metal, and thrash metal, and maybe in a different way than you're used to in terms of Greek black metal, where their rhythms, there certainly are shades of the classics in their work, but this is much more of a heavy metal band when you get down to it. And their last record had a little bit more touches upon gothic vocals, and it had thrash metal in a lot more of the songs. Here, these things act as extras in the focus of the record, which is a little bit more straightforward and delivers upon some of their earlier work in a more direct way. So I like this record. I thought it was great. It brought me back to what I liked about their earlier work, like I said. It's tough hitting a month where there are so many of my favorite bands that have appeared on my best of the year lists before, going through their enormous discographies. This is the 10th Primordial album, and going back and being like, how can I not love the 10th Primordial album when this band has entertained me for over 20 years, right? And the thing is that I did love this album at first. I sort of found that it had its quirks, its inconsistencies, and its strange moments that kind of appear out of nowhere, but it kept its personality throughout the experience. And I felt like if you're looking for a Primordial album in 2023, it's going to have to sound like this. And again, in the review, I'll kind of go on about how there is some inconsistency in the rock-flavored side of the band, alongside the sort of epic, the sort of epic 8-minute songs otherwise. But overall, it's a fine hour-long experience with Primordial, who've always, again, entertained with a charismatic event every time they put out a record. So I wasn't sure what to expect out of backxxa after they returned with another full length after not very long after the last one, and this does reprise the style of that last record in most ways, but it brings in some more melody, a little bit of a different sound. It focuses a little bit on the black doom metal side of the band, but also there are now keyboards in their music that are a little bit more prominent and different in their incorporation of melody. So this is a bit of a sea change for their sound, but also not one that's unheard of or unrelated to what they do. I feel like they're reaching for their own sound more and more with each recording, and it's interesting to see a band come back after so many years and transform so completely without losing the sort of heart and the message of the group. So I'm still a fan of their sound. I love this type of black metal. If you like that sort of late 80s into early 90s doomed side of black metal, this is the kind of group for you. Axis of Torture is the fourth full-length album from Suffer Yourself, and this was more of a funeral doom metal band when they started, and I would say one that was not quite a gothic funeral doom metal band, but a fairly typical one when they started out in terms of the style. And over the last couple records, they've turned into a death doom metal band, and I would say a funeral death doom metal band who do play with the slower side of pacing, but they never appear entirely frozen. And beyond the point that this is just a classic riff-filled death metal album that's just heavy as hell, they also have a really interesting theme here, which is worth exploring in terms of both what it invokes and what it should have you thinking about in terms of your own mental state. So just a cool record, interesting artistic design, and otherwise just a very straightforward, very heavy riff-driven death metal album again, and that's always going to appeal to me. Under the Sign of Rebellion is the fourth full-length album from Brazilian death metal band Rebellion, and I think this is a return to form for these guys. It's sort of a send off for some of them, but generally a brutal death metal in the sense that you're looking beyond the late 90s, pushing into the early 2000s, but still keeping in sight of what death metal had accomplished in the 90s. And that means there's riffs all over this thing. There are heavier grooves, that's for sure, but they haven't. They've kept the speed up so that it invokes the early feeling of this band, which is rooted in things like Morbid Angel, Angel Corpse, and certainly if you're a fan of Crisian, you'll understand where this band came from back in the day. So just a solid record that is worth the price of admission, I guess. So I didn't end up reviewing For the Good of the Realm, the second full-length album from Boise, Idaho-based sort of I guess epic black metal band Wield and Woe, because I got it several weeks after it had released. I didn't really, it was buried in an email, and I finally got around to it, and I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I bought this band's CD back when it first came out, the first record. So it turns out they've gotten a lot better at what they're doing. The production values, the drumming is much better. I think it's less of a solo project anymore. And yeah, they sound like Obsequiae, and that's a great thing. This is maybe a little bit more heavy metal in its construction because it comes from the folks behind By Fire and Sword, apparently, who also put out a record which I missed this year. So it's this captivating record. I don't know how else to put it. I wanted to pass by it and just say I didn't have time, but every time I picked it up, it really kind of got me listening, and I love that sound. So it was worth recommending here because I think it will stick in the same way for a lot of people. So there are a lot of honorable mentions this month. Now, people had asked me why I didn't review the latest Blood Incantation single. It is a great song and an interesting enough ambient work. I would like to hear a record from this band that is a fully fleshed idea and not just a small vignette. I didn't find the song that impressive, but it is I like the cleaned up and professional sound of their production, and if that's a hint as to what they're working on next, that should be interesting. I've always been critical of their sound after their first couple of releases because I feel like it was a little bit choppy, just in terms of contiguous, meaningful ideas set in a row. Otherwise, I think Iskander's record will surprise a lot of people. Alter Rage, that's a very cool record. I kind of wanted it on this list really bad because it's unique and it's a band that I've gotten more into over time. And I guess over Fossilization, definitely I should have put that on the top 20, but things keep bumping back and forth. I think if you're a fan of sort of cavernous death metal or death doom metal, Fossilization's debut full length is a great pick. And otherwise, Abominated, very straightforward old school death metal from Poland. You should definitely check that out. It is surprisingly good. There's plenty of brutality in there. Yeah, overall, just a great month for fans of death metal, doom, and all that. And speaking of doom, Hands of Orlak, check that record out. I think the vocalist can be a little bit overstated and kind of piercing with her style, but fans of traditional doom metal with a little bit of an occult touch will enjoy Hebitudo Mentis. And I can't forget Exorcist Phobia's Spiritual Exodus. Really good classic thrash metal sound, heavily influenced by the California and New Jersey styles of thrash from the late 80s, and maybe it's pretty accessible, so that could be broadly appealing to a lot of people. So check those out. Don't overlook those, and see if they stand out for you.